listening to the Narrative Podcast with Halsey Allen. The Narrative Podcast is changing the narrative one episode at a time.
Peace, peace, peace. What's good, family? You are now listening to another episode of the Narrative Podcast. The Narrative Podcast is the home of original people. Original people peace, original people reciprocity, and original people positivity. The Narrative Podcast promotes positive reinforcement of original people and original people culture. The Narrative Podcast provides positive frames of reference about original people and original people culture. Welcome to the Narrative Podcast. I am your host, Halsey Allen. Welcome all my narrators. So yeah, this week went super quick. We back at it, like a you know what at it, on this fine weekend. A beautiful thing. So, welcome to the Narrative Podcast. And as promised, I'm broadcasting at a fairly reasonable hour, and I will have it uploaded to all my platforms at a fairly reasonable hour this weekend. But anyway, welcome to the Narrative Podcast. Got a pretty decent show for you this evening. All my regular listeners are my narrators. They already know the demonstration. They already know about the Narrative Podcast, my content, what my content is about, the way I deliver it. But for everyone else new to the platform, how I generally start things off is I promote all my current projects that I have finished that I would like for you to support. Then I walk you through a brief overview of the Narrative Podcast, then I dive on into the content. So having said that, it's promotion time. First project I would like to promote is the platform itself, the Narrative Podcast. And the way you can support the Narrative Podcast is to download this episode and all previously recorded episodes of the Narrative Podcast, wherever you get your podcast source from. The best way to do that is to follow me on YouTube and X. You want to follow me on YouTube and X because this platform that I'm recording on automatically uploads the newest episodes of the Narrative Podcast to those mediums. So if you follow me on either of those mediums, you will be well notified and have access to the most recent episode of the Narrative Podcast immediately. So how you support me on YouTube is to obviously follow me on YouTube, Halsey Allen, Hallzie, Allen, Allen, and then click the subscription button, then notification button all, and then of course like all episodes of the Narrative Podcast. And on YouTube, unless you've been living under a rock, the like button is a thumbs up icon. You want to click on the thumbs up icon to like all episodes of the Narrative Podcast, and then also comment on the latest episode of the Narrative Podcast when you're following me on YouTube, and then share the newest episode of the Narrative Podcast across all platforms. Whatever platform that you like sharing content to, make sure you share the newest episode of the Narrative Podcast. Make sure it's the one hosted by me, Halsey Allen, because there are literally thousands of other podcasts titled the Narrator Podcast, but the only narrative podcast that matters is the one I host. Yeah, it's like that. So that's how you support me on YouTube. And the next platform you want to follow me on for the most recent episodes of the Narrative Podcast is X, formerly Twitter. Now you got a little bit more options on X. The most important option on X actually is the download option, because that, helps me the most, is when you download episodes of the Narrative Podcast. That impacts my algorithm the best. So you want to follow me on X, formerly Twitter. And I don't know how they do the notifications for that. I follow a lot of people. I very seldomly check my notifications, but whatever. However it go. Follow me on X, formerly Twitter. And when you arrive on my page, make sure you're on the correct page. I stay good at Halsey Allen. And then what you want to do, when you see the Narrative Podcast link, you want to click on the Narrative Podcast link. But before you even do that, make sure you're on the right page, because when you follow me on X, formerly Twitter, it's my page, because I have a copy of my book of poetry pinned to the top of my page. It's titled The Black Card. I promote that a little bit later on. So click on the link to the Narrative Podcast, and then click the heart-shaped like button. Because after you click on the link, you should see the banner for the Narrative Podcast. So don't hit play yet. Click on that heart-shaped like button to fully expand that episode of the Narrative Podcast. And then once the banner is expanded, you want to go to the bottom of it and click the heart-shaped like button again. And then you should see a little icon of a clock. Ignore that. And then go to the comment box. We all know what a comment box looks like. Leave me a comment in the comment box. And then next to the comment box is the most important thing you need to do for this platform is download. The download button is in the shape of a cloud. It has an arrow pointing down. You want to click on the download button to download episodes of the Narrative Podcast. And next to the download button, obviously, is the share button. And then you want to share that episode, the most recent episode of the Narrative Podcast, to whatever platform that you like sharing content to. And that's how you support the platform, the Mighty Mighty Narrative Podcast. All right. On to the next thing I would like to promote that I need my loyal listeners help with. Help your brother out. Is to support my book of poetry that I've written. The book of poetry that I've written is titled The Black Card. And what The Black Card is about, it's a 30-page book of poetry chronicling everything we encounter and experience as black people. So basically, it's a retrospective piece. It just covers all the nuances about our culture and everything we experience as a people, both positive and negative. So it's a really deep spiritual journey. Each one of the pieces on there are reflective of who we are as a people and what we experience as a people. And the way to purchase the black card is to go to poetizer.com and visit their virtual online bookstore to purchase my copy of my book of poetry that I wrote, titled The Black Card. And so if you're unfamiliar with Poetizer is just simply a social media platform for writers. They cater to all genres of writing. The main genre of writing they cater to is poetry. Obviously, it's implied in the name, poetizer.com. So, writers can go there, they can socially interact with one another, whether it's just like socially, like make friends or whatever. You can also critique each other's work. And then they also have activities for the writers. They have writing prompts. So each genre of writing will have a specific writing prompt for them, a daily writing prompt. So it's welcome to people to write short stories, novels, essay writing. That's what poetizer.com is. They also have self-publishing software. So you can, the people that are a part of that community can write books. And so that's what I did. I used their self-publishing software to write my book. And then for people that use their self-publishing software to write books, they have a virtual online bookstore where they can market and sell their literature that they produce on that site. So now that you know what poetizer.com is, go to poetizer.com and purchase my book of poetry titled The Black Card. The Black Card will make a good coffee table read, a good gift for a friend, just a good travel book if you're a person who likes to travel, or just, sit back at home and relax type book. Whatever you use it for, however you choose to use the book, whatever setting you choose to read it in, and to make a good book to read. The poems on there are really creative, really abstract. As a black man or a black woman, you just automatically feel kinship or oneness with each piece featured in that book. It's like the ancestors will call out to you to, read it. People outside of our culture, they don't have to feel left out. If you have an open mind and consider yourself progressive, you can read that book too and enjoy it and share it with your children and family, friends, and associates to broaden and expand their horizon and strengthen the bonds of whatever black person is in your life, whatever black person you deal with on a daily basis, that can broaden and expand your horizon and help you better relate to them. But, go check it out, The Black Card on poetizer.com. Purchase the Black Card today or get your Black Card revoked. And last but not least, the last thing I would like to promote is my personal poetry blog on blogger.com titled hallziespoetrycorner. And what that is just basically a collection of my poetry. It's really unique, very abstract. It's just a collection of versatile poems, anything you can experience in life, there's a poem to commemorate that on Hallzies Poetry Corner. That's just how versatile each, piece featured on that blog site is. And another unique thing about that site is just for everybody. All walks of life, race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, whatever. It's for anybody to read and anybody to enjoy. Now, I do have some poems on there just specifically for my community, original people community, or black community, but for the most part, all the poetry on Hallzies Poetry Corner is just all inclusive. Like anybody from any walk of life could, read a piece featured on that blog site and, find a piece of themselves either, in the first few lines of a piece or in the piece's entirety. So do yourself a tremendous favor. Go to Hallzies Poetry Corner on blogger.com at www.mrhallziesblogs.com and read the poems featured on the blog site. And the way you support Hallzies Poetry Corner poems is to share either the link to Hallzies Poetry Corner or poems featured on Hallzies Poetry Corner across all platforms. And then also comment when you get to the site after you click on the link. You're going to see a comment box. Please comment. Each piece has a comment box underneath it. So go into the comment section underneath the poetry piece and leave me a comment, and then also, of course, share it to all platforms, whatever platform that you like sharing content to. And then also hit the like button. The like button is in the shape of a heart. So look for the heart-shaped like button and click on that, and that's how you support Hallzies Poetry Corner. And the tagline for my poetry blog is Hallzies Poetry Corner, poetry with a passion, poetry for all occasions. And when you visit the blog site and read each piece for yourself, you're going to see that they measure up to that catchphrase. So yeah, another unique thing about the poems featured on Hallzies Poetry Corner is that they're just all spontaneously written. I didn't contemplate, about the subject matter of the piece. I didn't, pre-write anything. I didn't contemplate on what I was going to title each piece. They literally just was just amalgamated in the moments. I literally didn't have anything on my mind when I was writing each piece. So go on over to Hallzies Poetry Corner on blogger.com and support that. Thank you very much kindly. One last thing I would like to just say about the Narrator podcast and Hallzies Poetry Corner is, to all my visual content creators, if you're a content creator, such as a YouTuber or a TikToker, Facebook Live, anything where, you're uploading content where you're in front of the camera, please shout out Halsey's Poetry Corner and the Narrator Podcast. I would appreciate it very much. And of course, the internet makes the world small. You will get a trickle down effect in a good way. It'll come back to you in a good way. So go check that out. Those are all the projects I have to promote at this time. And when I have new things ready and available to the public, I will share them on the Narrator Podcast before each broadcast. But those are, my constant 3. So go check all those out. Please support the platform, the Narrator Podcast. Please purchase my book of poetry, The Black Card. Please read, comment, share, or share the poems featured on Hallziespoetrycorner Poetry Corner blog across all platforms. So that's it. My promotional section is done. I've promoted everything that I have going on right now. And now we're going to dive into a brief overview of the Narrator Podcast. I provide you with a brief overview of the podcast before diving into the content, just to provide you, the listening audience, with full context of my platform. So here we go, starting at the top, Tippy, the name. I named my podcast the Narrator Podcast as I don't like the false narrative that the media weaves about original people and original people culture. So what I wanted to do to counter the way the media deliberately misappropriates our images and our likenesses is design a platform where I'm uplifting and edifying our people and celebrating all our accomplishments and achievements by providing the listening audience with positive frames of reference to counter the media's negative frames of reference about our people and our culture. The mission statement of the Narrator Podcast is to uplift and edify our people, to promote positive reinforcement, and to celebrate all our accomplishments and achievements, and to encourage unity within our community. I also want to bring awareness to the listening audience of why it's important to responsibly utilize your platforms to share positive frames of reference about our people and our culture, and also encourage the listening audience to share positive frames of reference about our people and our culture on their platforms. And having said that, that's a perfect segue to my tagline for my podcast, the Narrator Podcast, changing the narrative one episode at a time by destroying negative stereotypes about original people and original people culture. How do I destroy the negative stereotypes about our people and our culture? By providing positive frames of reference about our people and our culture, hence the title, the Narrator Podcast. So the first thing you need to be aware of when listening to the Narrator Podcast is I refer to my target listening audience as my narrators. And the job of a narrator is basically to tell their own story. That's what a narrator is. A narrator is somebody that tells their own story, for proper context. So when you're watching television shows, when you're watching a play, you'll often hear the narrator setting up the scenario for you. So that's what I mean when I call my target listening audiences, or call my listeners my narrators. And the reason why it's important to, tell your own story, because if history has taught us any lesson we can learn from history, is this: if you don't tell your own story will be told for you. And that is what's happening with our people right now. The media is telling our own story for us. They're perpetuating or creating and perpetuating negative stereotypes about our people, and sensationalizing stigmas within our culture. So that's why it's important for us to tell our own stories. The Narrative Podcast isn't a place where we're seeking validation from people outside of our culture. The goal here is not to even enlighten people outside of our culture about our culture. This is a platform to simply tell the truth. Tell the story of who we truly are as a people to the masses. Who are we as a people? Our true identity. We're kings and queens, gods and goddesses of the universe. And that's how we need to be portrayed and depicted across all platforms. So essentially, I always give this analogy when I'm speaking about narrating. So we pretty much all interact online. We gather information online for whatever you're online for. We're living in the digital information age. That's just the times we're living in. You need to be online for something. And typically, whatever platform you're online for, each platform has, a bio section. Whoever's platform it is, they got a bio section. They list, X, Y, and Z, whatever they want the world to know about themselves in their bio section. They put a picture of themselves in the best visual image they can possibly muster, usually the profile picture, if it's a self, picture of yourself. Some people's profile pics, they put up objects, they don't put pictures of themselves, they just put an object up. So they might be bots, they might not even be actual humans. But for the most part, generally people, when they assemble their bio section, they use the best possible photograph of themselves to, represent their platform. And then the information that they enter into the bio section is key. That's your autobiography. This is your story to the world. You're telling or narrating your own story. And then whatever you entered into the your bio section, you upload more visual content to commemorate or accompaniment what you've entered about yourself in the bio section. And these, visual photographs are usually the best possible images you can muster. So said all that to say, when people get online, they want to share the best possible visual image of themselves to the world as they can possibly provide. It's very rare that people get online and share the worst possible visual image of themselves and their lives. It's very rare. Like, some people do get online and complain and, oh, woe is me, this ain't going right for me, and this ain't going right for me, and I'm having a bad day, and pray for me. You know, some people get online and do that. Some people do actually do that, and it's just like, ugh. But for the most part, everybody gets online and they show the world the best possible visual image of, you know, whatever they want to share with the world. You know, whatever you entered into your bio section, you want to share the best possible visual image to reflect that. So like, if you say you like bowling, you're going to upload pictures of, you know, all the bowling alleys you like to go to. You're going to upload your perfect score of the perfect game. You're going to upload your pictures of all the accolades you accumulated in the sport of bowling. You're sharing with the world your best possible visual images. You're telling or narrating your own story. And so that's what I mean when I call my target listening audience my narrators. To tell your own story. Now, how that correlates with our people, original people or black people, is, you know, we need to use our spaces to share the best possible visual images of ourselves as possible, because the media shares the worst possible visual images about our people and our culture. So we need to be uploading visual content reflective of that, you know, we are unified as a people. Visual content that is reflective that we are intelligent people. Visual content that is reflective that we are moral people. Visual content that is reflective that we are prideful people, that we care about ourselves, that we care about our communities. What we don't need to be doing is feeding into these negative visual images that the media supplies to the rest of the world by regurgitating it back online or whatever platform that we occupy. We don't need to play into these negative stereotypes. Like, we don't need to regurgitate gang culture online. We don't need to regurgitate pimp culture, whore culture, drug dealer, drug user, angry black man, angry black woman. We don't need to regurgitate those images. You see? So that's what I mean when I call my target listening audience my narrators. All right, so the next thing you need to be aware about the Narrative Podcast is this is a positive space. I don't engage in any slander, gossip, Pardon me. You heard a little crunching. Powerfully hungry today. But what I don't promote or subscribe to is negativity of any kind. I don't do the name calling. I don't, try to create the atmosphere of gossiping or, anything slanderous or scandalous about our people and our culture online. I just don't promote that here. The Narrator podcast is all about positive reinforcement, wishing our brothers and sisters, the best. Now, it's impossible to get along with everybody, to like everybody, to love everybody. You're just not. But as a people, what we don't need to do is get online and drag each other to the lowest depths we can possibly drag each other by airing out dirty laundry and taking cheap jabs at each other and threatening physical violence, threatening to whatever, how it go. So the Narrative podcast this is just basically a positive, safe space for original people. It's dedicated to, celebrate our accomplishments and achievements and to, unify our people. That's what it's all about. Now, I do deliver commentary on here as well. And when I'm commentating on current events, I am a podcaster, so I do, and an audio podcaster at that, so I do have to talk about, the hot button issues, whatever is going on in the world, whatever is going on in our community, whatever is going on, online, like this viral, I got to talk about it. And I have to talk about it in a way that, appeals to this audience, and I got to speak about it in a way that, is reflective. It reflects, rather, our point of view, our perspective. And generally, when I'm talking about things, as it relates to us, especially when it comes to people within our community, public figures or celebrities in our community, because it's usually when they're in the eye of the public, when they're trending online or in the news, it's usually for something negative. Now, when I talk about them, when I bring their names up, it's never to, take jabs at them or make light of whatever bad situation they're in or whatever, bad time that they're going through. I'm not trying to, laugh at them or, trying to roast them or nothing like that. Whenever I deliver commentary, I frame it up from the perspective of, the why. Why did this happen? And typically, when any negative thing happens in our community, two key components are usually at place. Key component number one is systemic oppression. And then key component two is psychological programming and conditioning. Now, the psychological programming and conditioning is due to the systemic oppression, but, that's another subject for another time. But typically, that's the way I deliver my commentary and how I frame, all the points that I'm trying to make, that I make known on this platform. So it's never to, belittle or berate anybody. It's just framing it up from that perspective. So if I ever mention a famous person's name, I'm not denigrating them. I'm not trying to shame them. I'm not, trying to take a cheap shot. It's just basically framing it up to, this is probably why this negative thing happened. So yeah. Next thing you should be aware about the Narrator podcast is a time-sensitive platform. Try not to exceed 1 hour per broadcast. That's very hard to do, especially when you're an all-audio platform. You can easily go over 10 minutes. I have a lot of fillers. I try to catch myself because I don't just like opening my mouth without a purpose. So I often say or because I'm thinking about it before I say it. But, for the most part, I try to just keep it short, sweet, and to the point. Because I don't want to bore my listening audience. I want to captivate your attention. I want to inform you and educate you, empower you, and also, I am in that podcast space. I want to entertain you. But what I can't do any of that if I'm just talking and talking and talking without a purpose. So I try to make sure all my content is cohesive, is purposeful. If purposeful was a word, with purpose, intentional, and basically try to make it as easy to follow and digestible as possible. So, I don't want to talk in circles. I don't want to go down rabbit holes. I most certainly don't want to rant. Just rant on and rant on and rant on. I just want to address it and make the point clear, make the point known, and make the point clear, and then move forward. And lay it out in a nice package for the listener. So you don't have to clear your entire schedule to, catch up with the uptake of the Narrator podcast. You can just listen to it at your leisure. And you don't have to clear your entire schedule if you miss an episode here and there. So that's how brief and to the point I want to make each episode. And then last but not least, on this platform, the Narrator podcast, I refer to our people, black people, as original people. And so the reason why I refer to our people as original people is because, number one, it's historically accurate, and two, it unifies us as a people. That term is just all-inclusive. It covers, on the unity side of it, it covers the complete spectrum of who we are as a people. Like, we're comprised of, many different people hailing from many different land masses, subscribing to many different ideologies and perspectives and viewpoints and ways of life. But that term is just all-inclusive. No matter where you're at, you are original. So what do I mean by the historical accuracy? Well, we were and are the original people of this world. We was here thousands of years before everybody, before anything was, we was. Original people, black people. Not only were we here first, we originated everything in this world as well. We built everything. We taught everyone. We were the original scholars. We were the original physicians, healers. We were the original chemists, architects, alchemists. We were the original philosophers, astronomers, astrologers. All of that started with us originally. So that's why I refer to our people as original people from the historical perspective of the word. So now that you get the gist of the Narrative Podcast, I'm going to dive on into the content. This is a weekend edition of the Narrative Podcast. So, for those that listen to my podcast on a regular basis, they know I have two different format styles. During the weekday, I split my content up into two sections. I only have two sections during the weekday. On weekends, I have 5 sections. I have it split up into sections. Each section has a speaking point, and I try my very best to time each section. So without any further ado, on into the first section on this weekend edition of the Narrative Podcast. I call my weekend editions full editions because they're longer than the weekday. So there's more, purpose behind it. My first section is called the highlight section. In the highlight section, what I'm doing is I'm highlighting or promoting black-owned, or as I refer to it on my platform, original people-owned and operated businesses. And the reason why I feel it's important to highlight, businesses owned and operated by us is because I'm staying true to my mission statement. And my mission statement is to provide the listeners with positive frames of reference about our people and our culture. So my first positive frame of reference about our people and our culture is the positive frame of reference about ownership. And the reason why I feel it's important to share the positive frame of reference about ownership is because we have so very few frames of reference about ownership to, look at, or in this case, listen to, because it's an audio platform. The very few frames of reference about ownership that we have for our people come in the form of scripted reality television. And typically, we are depicted in a negative light on scripted reality television shows because the producers of those shows, they don't care about, the way they present us to the rest of the world. All they care about is the ratings. And what makes ratings soar is violence and degeneracy. And so that's how they try to spin it when they feature our people on scripted reality television shows. As the old saying, sex sells. So that's what they try to do to our people on scripted reality television shows. They show us engaging in lewd behavior, overindulging in alcohol, overindulging in substances, behaving badly, getting in physical altercations, verbal altercations, creating collateral damage, breaking stuff up, just violence. And again, the producers of that show, they manipulate the environment to trigger those types of things. So on here, on the Narrator podcast, I don't do that. I just show the best part of it instead of the worst part of it. Because on scripted reality television show, what you're not seeing is that our brothers and sisters depicted on those shows are like, business owners, because most of them are celebrities, whether they're actors or actresses or recording artists. They have several entities under their brand umbrella. They feed, thousands or hundreds or thousands, depending on, who they have on the show, off of their brand. They're putting people's children through college. They're putting like literal food on people's tables with the salary that they pay all the people working for them. They do philanthropy in the community, have nonprofit organizations, or they pay into nonprofit organizations, and we're not seeing that. We just see what the producers of those shows want us to see, which is us being disenfranchised, which is us behaving badly, which is us behaving like savages and ignoramuses. So, that's why I'm doing the highlight section. I'm highlighting business ownership. I'm just giving you the highlights of what it means to own your own business. I'm walking you through a business owner's life. How they came up with the idea, a little bit about themselves, like where they grew up, if I have that information readily available, what city and state did they grow up, where they got their education, where they got the funding for their business. I'm trying to highlight the business owner through all stages of their life on up until they got their finished product. So that's what the highlight section here on the Narrator podcast is all about, is I'm giving you the highlights of a business owner. The criteria that I select the business owner to highlight in the highlight section fall under these categories. First of all, they're original people. The business is original people owned and operated. They hire their own. They do some form of philanthropy. They either have their own nonprofit organization or they pay into one. Many of the businesses that I highlight in the highlight section are family owned and operated. So in that instance, I would be giving you the positive frame of reference about generational wealth. And the last qualifying criteria that I use to highlight business owners in the highlight section here on the Narrator podcast is that it aligns up with my theme. And so now that you know what the criteria for the highlight section entails, I'm going to dive right on in with the first original people owned and operated business that I'll be covering in the highlight section on the Narrator podcast. So, like I said, they have to line up with my theme. And my theme is nationally recognized days on the calendar. So today is September 21st. And today is National Pecan Cookie Day. So today, on this weekday edition of the Narrator podcast, I will be highlighting original people owned and operated businesses that specialize in the or that coincides with the nationally recognized holiday. So today's National Pecan Cookie Day. I'll be highlighting original people-owned and operated businesses that kind of specialize in the production of pecan cookies. All right, so the first business up, I'll be highlighting a business by the name of Southern Girls Desserts. And you can look for Southern Girls Desserts online at Southern Girls Desserts, dessertsingular.com. It was established in 2007 by two sisters, one Miss Coretta Coleman and the other one, so two sisters by the name of, I mispronounced her name, I believe, Katara Coleman and Sonia Robinson. So Katara, Catarah Coleman, and Shania Robinson, Shonejji. You know what's in them darn names, so, but you know, those are the two sisters that founded this establishment. Now, the unique thing about this establishment off the rip, this is their product is 110% organic and vegan. So it contains no animal products. It's all natural. Well, it's all natural as, processed foods can be. So their story goes like this. They were both born and raised in Florida. They attended HBCU, Florida A&M. Now, while they were attending college, their paths never crossed. They didn't know each other when they both, lived in Florida. But fate lended a hand. Years later, they both simultaneously moved to Los Angeles. And then they finally met through mutual acquaintances because both of them had the same goal in life. They both wanted to start their own bakery. And the reason why they wanted to start their own bakery is because, they both grew up down south in kind of desserts. For those, if you know, down south, that is just the whole thing. Dessert is a thing. Like, in our community, we say, I want something sweet. So down south, they keep something sweet, and it is the accompaniment to pretty much a complete meal. Like down south, the further you go, it's like you got your protein, your starches, and then you finish up with dessert. Something sweet. Either a pie or a cake, tarts, something. But anyway, that was their philosophy behind wanting to be bakers. Their experience that they had growing up in the South. The article did not say why they decided on vegan. Now, once their mutual friends introduced them, they hit it off immediately. It was a like attracts like type thing. They got the vibe in immediately. Started bouncing ideas off each other's heads. Collaborated, and then before you know it, they got a food truck type situation and was doing pop-ups all over that area of LA that their business is currently located. They got their first big break selling baked goods at the mall that their business is now located. It was just kind of outside of it, and the proprietors of the mall gave them permission, and they pretty much sold out instantaneously of their product. It was a hit in that neighborhood. And then as time went on, they got some more locations, and they became popular all throughout LA. Then even more time went on, and they competed for a Food Network show called Cake Wars. They competed on Cake Wars 3 times. They failed. They got cut on the preliminary rounds on the first 2 seasons that they was featured on Cake Wars, and then the 3rd time that they entered Cake Wars, they won. And then at somewhere around that time frame, they ended up starting their own brick and mortar, the location that their business is located now. So they're original woman-owned business. They cater to the community. They provide job opportunities for everybody that lives in that part of Los Angeles. And their product is for the most part clean. As clean as processed food can be. Very minimal dyes, non-GMO. It's sweet, so it's still not, don't get it twisted. Like, people kind of misconstrue when they say plant-based or vegan. It's still, this is still dessert we're talking about. But anyway, they got a pretty superior product, and that is the story of how Southern Girls Desserts came to be. And the story is actually way more complex than that, but like this section is called, it's called the highlight section. So I'm just giving you the highlights of business ownership. So do yourself a favor, go to see the variety of types of cookies that they have. Go to southerngirlsdessert.com, and you can view, their full menu. Now their number one selling item is a cupcake. Actually, their sweet potato pie cupcake. But be in commemoration with the nationally recognized holiday, they do have a chocolate chip cookie with pecans on the menu as well. So, join me into giving our sisters, try not to butcher their names, Katara and Shanae, Katara Coleman and Shanae Robinson of Southern Girls Desserts. Now, their physical location, if you're in LA, you can go check them out at 3650 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Suite 100, Los Angeles, California, 90008. And their hours of operation is Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., or Sunday, 11 p.m. to 7 p.m. So let's go on, like I said, give our sisters a warm narrative podcast round of applause for Southern Girls Desserts. Moving right along. The next business I'll be highlighting in the highlight section on this weekend edition of the Narrator Podcast is a company by the name of Maya's Cookie Shop. And the proprietor of this shop is obviously a sister by the name of Maya. Her name is Maya Madison. You can go see her inventory for Maya's Cookie Shop at mayascookieshop.com. It was established in 2015. So Maya's story is a very simplistic story. She was just basically had a craving for a cookie at the grocery store that they for a cookie brand that the grocery no longer carried. So what she wanted to do to satisfy that craving is just trying to duplicate the cookie brand to her remembrance of what she remembered the product tasted like. And she went on that track for close to 5 to 10 years, perfecting the recipe. So after she went vegan, of course, she adapted the formula to accommodate the vegan lifestyle. So the original product was had animal product in it, so like eggs and oil and all that stuff. So, she went on after she became vegan. It doesn't say why she became vegan in any interviews or, things I researched online. And then, just to let you know, even though, I don't eat meat, I didn't choose initially to just, do vegan cookie shops, because I just try to, select businesses that, align up with my theme and my qualifying factors. So I didn't see a whole lot of them, because the majority of the cookie shops, they just didn't have a bio section. They didn't have anything about the owners. It just said they're black owned. So, like I said, I want to try to give you full context of, the full experience of what it's like to be a business owner. Because the media have you just believing that it's impossible to own a business. You see, it's like a form of psychological warfare that they do with us. They just bombard us with all these negative images, and you just kind of lose hope, so that you won't never ever try to attempt to start your own business. I didn't mean to veer off topic, but so that's basically the gist of it. But anyway, back to her story. So she was just trying to find a cookie brand that she used to enjoy in her younger days. She perfected the recipe, and then after she perfected the recipe, she had to perfect the recipe again to accommodate her new plant-based diet. So after she perfected that recipe, then she decided to, sell cookies as a full-time job. She has a variety of cookies. Um, her number one seller is like I believe her number one selling cookie is the chocolate chip s'more, her most popular one. But she also has, of course, to commemorate the national recognized holiday, a cookie that has pecans in it, a caramel pecan pie cookie. But yeah, that's her story. Like I said, her story was super brief and to the point. She didn't have any prior experience in that industry. Everything was just, she learned as she went. And now she is a full-on business, owned and operated by herself. She hires her own in that community, affords opportunities. And then also, Black History Month of last year, she came up with a full cookie menu to commemorate sheroes. So she named some cookies about prominent figures in our community who happen to be sisters. She had a cookie for the Serena Williams. She had a cookie for she had cookies to commemorate, figures within our community. She had a cookie to commemorate Misty Copeland. And if you remember that young lady, that was when the Flint, Michigan crisis, she came up with a cookie to commemorate her. She had a cookie to commemorate Patti LaBelle. She had a cookie to commemorate, I already said Venus, or one of the Williamses. But that was last year. I don't know if she did one for 24, but that's the type of stuff she does with her brand. So, definitely go support that sister. So go to myascookies.com and view their selection and see which one you like. Or if you're ever in California, she has 2 locations. She got one in San Diego and one in San Marcos. So the San Diego location is 4760 Mission George Place, Suite G, San Diego, California, 92120. And telephone number 619-269-3705. And their San Marcos address is 250 North City Drive, Suite 8, San Marcos, California, 92078. 760-290-3032. So join me into giving our sister Maya Madison and Maya's Cookies a warm narrative podcast round of applause. And last but not least, on this weekend edition of the Narrator Podcast, my final business I will be highlighting is a business by the name of Cookie Society. And you can go check out their selection, what they have to offer at cookiesociety.com. It was established in 2020 by a husband and wife team, Marissa and Jeff Allen. Now you might recognize Jeff Allen because he's a retired NFL player. He used to play for the Chiefs. But anyway, so Marissa liked pretty much baking her whole entire life. She baked as a pastime. But you know, that all took a turn one day. They took a trip to New York City, a famous bake shop. The article didn't say the name of the famous bake shop she went to go visit, but she went to go visit a famous bake shop in New York City, and then just quick, you know, her cookies is animal products, so her cookies ain't vegan. But she does have vegan options though, but just the majority of them are have animal product in them. But anyway, so she went to go visit the bake shop in New York, and then she loved the cookies so much, she spent about 4 or 5 years trying to replicate the cookies that, you know, her and her husband enjoyed in New York. So she would just do large batches of cookies, and you know, she would give them to her husband to take to his teammates in the locker room, and they would rave about the cookies. And then from there, she started trying more different flavors, and just kept on expanding her line, trying it not only with his teammates, but like her personal friends and colleagues and people that lived in her neighborhood. So essentially, basically, she got super good at baking cookies, and then eventually wanted to pursue baking as a full-time hobby or a career, if you will. So she ended up like getting a food truck and was just doing cookie pop-ups initially. And then she finally got a brick and mortar in 2020, and the rest, as they say, is history. And that's how the Cookie Society was born. Now that was the only one that didn't have, you know, something with pecans on it. I didn't see any pecan cookies when I went to the site, but they do have a build a box option. So I'm pretty sure you can, if you like pecans, you can tell them, hey, chocolate chip with some pecans or whatever. You know, if you're a pecan lover, or pecan. Some people say pecan. I say pecan. But whether you like pecans or pecans, go check her out. cookiesociety.com. Their brick and mortar location is 9320 Dallas Parkway, Suite 100 in Frisco, Texas 75039. And then call them at 214-618-0651. And once more again, that's Cookie Society, and owned and operated by Marissa and Jeff Allen. So let's give a Warm Narrative Podcast round of applause for the husband-wife duo of Cookie Society, Marissa Allen and Jeff Allen. My next section on the Narrative Podcast is a section called the Spotlight section. And what the Spotlight section is all about is about a section, and in this section, it's all about positive reinforcement. It's just basically acknowledging someone from our community impacting our community in a positive way, whether it's through philanthropy, humanitarianism, just basically carrying and conducting themselves in a positive way. You know, they get acknowledged in the spotlight section on the Narrative Podcast. So that's basically, you know, what this section is all about. Is basically, you know, acknowledging somebody doing, air quotes, the work. And also to teach that it's okay to pay somebody a compliment. We've been brainwashed and conditioned to believe complimenting somebody is like being fake. Being fake and phony for saying, you know, you look nice, or I like, you know, XYZ, whatever you did. Like, we've been programmed and conditioned just to be combative towards one another. You know, to pick each other apart verbally. God forbid somebody don't know you makes eye contact with you. This is how sick we are as a people. What the F you looking at? But essentially what I'm doing in the spotlight section is normalizing being normal and being cordial and respectable and decent to your brother or sister. That's normal. What's not normal is the fight or flight. What's not normal is just, you know, instantaneously having a problem with somebody that you don't even know. You see, that's a part of the psychological programming and conditioning that they do to us. They use the media to make us perceive ourselves a certain way, to interact with one another in a certain way. And the certain way is a negative way. A certain way is a violent way. But here on the Narrative Podcast, like I said, this section is dedicated to just basically, you know, giving a person their roses for all the positive things that they do. And, you know, / all heroes don't wear capes section. And to also just basically promote positive reinforcement within our community. Because, you know, these faceless corporations make money hand over fist with turning us against each other. They incentivize drama. They incentivize messiness. They literally, you know, slide us a bag, slide our celebrities, pardon me, a bag to say something negative about another celebrity and instigate beef, and then it's back and forth, and, you know, that's what they do these days. So now, us being real, like, you know, that's how, like, sick we become. We don't think paying somebody a compliment is being real. You being fake and phony. You trying to brown nose just because you said somebody looks nice, or, you know, I like those shoes, or whatever. You know, that's soft and that's weak. You know, they look at you all side-eye if you got something nice to say about somebody. But then you say something negative, then with the hip-hop slang, oh, he keeping it real, he keeping it a bean, he keeping it a buck. Because you said something negative? But anyway, that's essentially what the spotlight section is all about. It's just promoting positive reinforcement within our community. And just, celebrating a person's accomplishments and achievements and paying them the proper respect and proper compliments that they need, that they deserve. They don't need the compliments that they deserve for the positive things that they contributed to our community, that impacted our community in a positive way. Now, having said that, your brother, Halsey Allen, me, coined the phrase for spotlight, or the way that I use it. Because before I added the spotlight section to my podcast, the Narrator podcast, nobody was spotlighting anybody. Now all of a sudden, spotlighting is just a super common, widely used phrase. Nobody was commonly using spotlighting for anything until I added the spotlight section to my podcast. Now every time you look at interviews on YouTube, or where even the news, the local news, like today, the spotlight is on today's spotlight, spotlight on this person, or now they're even spotlighting products, when they're trying to advertise products. But anyway, I said all that to say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So it was my intent to start the trend of being positive online and demonstrating that you don't have to engage in negative behavior. You don't have to throw your brother and sister under the bus online to check a bag. You can be positive online and still check a bag. And then, before I forget, I just want to take this moment out before I do my victory dance for coining the term spotlighting. I just want to acknowledge some grown man activity. Steven Jackson just went online and publicly apologized to Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown publicly apologized to Steven Jackson. So that's some real grown man activity. It's the moments like that don't go viral, but when there was beefing going back and forth, that was going super viral. But that's not going viral when they just, as grown men said, I'm too old for this bull, and bullshit ain't about nothing, let's squash it, and that's what they did. And so, make some noise for Stephen A. Or not, I'm about to say Stephen A. said, for Steven Jackson and Kwame Brown for very maturely agreeing to civilly disagree. Yeah, but anyway, back to me. I created the way for spotlighting because before I added the spotlight section to my podcast, the Narrator Podcast, nobody was spotlighting anybody. Now all of a sudden everybody's, spotlighting each other. Everybody's spotlighting it up. But yeah. Like I said, imitation is the best form of flattery. You heard it here first. If you don't believe me, you can go through my episode log and fact check, cross-reference, and see from the time that I started this series all the way up to 2024 how popular the term spotlighting has become. The internet makes the world small. My stats will say, nobody's listening to me and nobody's following me. But I know, like really famous people listen to me on a regular basis, tune into my content on a regular basis, regardless of that they're not leaving comments or liking, which I really don't care about them not leaving comments or liking, my links and my posts and whatever. But their presence is there. I know they're there. And how I know they're there and they're listening to me and absorbing the content is because my content ends up in their content every time they make content. Not just what I say, but the way I say it. All my nuances, how I speak, how I accentuate certain words ends up in their content. So I know I'm being, listened to. But anyway, so yeah. Now I just gotta make some noise for me in the Narrator Podcast.
You are now listening to the Narrative Podcast with Halsey Allen. The Narrative Podcast is changing the narrative one episode at a time.
In a real way. All right, without any further ado, we're going to dive right on into this week's spotlight recipient of the Narrative Podcast. But before I do, I kind of glazed over one thing. Primarily, when I first started the spotlight section of the Narrative Podcast, I primarily focused on entertainers. I would dedicate the spotlight section of the Narrative Podcast to actors, actresses, recording artists, comedians, public figures, social media influencers, religious figures. But since then, I've really been trying to spotlight normal people, just regular people that's doing super positive things within our community. And the reason for me doing that is I don't want to perpetuate the negative stereotype that all we know how to do as a people is entertain. But I've kind of been thinking to myself, people in the entertainment industry from our community are especially under a lot of scrutiny by the media, and the way they're depicted in the media usually is surrounding some type of drama. It's always something negative. They never praise them for the positive things they do. The charitable events they contribute to, lending their voice for something positive. When they do positive things, that the cameras are never nowhere around. But as soon as they're involved in something negative, it's viral. and the media will milk it as many months as they possibly can milk it, whatever negative thing that they're going through. So, said all that to say is I'm kind of rethinking spotlighting entertainers now, but I had just taken a break from trying to intentionally spotlight entertainers, but this week one specific entertainer caught my eye, so I'm probably, I'm spotlighting an entertainer this week. And this is a young sister by the name of Lene Bowes, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. She's an actress, spoken word artist, and a teacher. She's a former HBCU grad. She graduated from Spelman. So she's really popping all over the media with her brand of entertainment, because she mixes the arts with, social commentary. Kind of something what I'm doing, but in front of a camera. She's visually in front of the camera. She's been in TV series and skits, and she's doing really well. And she's really just appealing to the masses with her brand of entertainment. She's come a long way in a short amount of time. She's just really setting the, world on fire with her art form. So, for that reason, that's why I'm giving her the spotlight section. Her most recent project that she has is on IGTV, called Parking Lot Pimpin'. She does her spoken word, and then she also delivers commentary on social activism, things going on in our community, and she's breaking it down from our perspective and commentating on it, and speaking truth into power. And so for that reason, that's why that sister got the spotlight section, or the spotlight this week on the Narrator Podcast Spotlight. So yeah, just one more thing I want to quickly point out about the spotlight section is, like, from week to week I alternate genders. So last week I had a male as the spotlight. So this week I have a female for the spotlight, and then next week, when I do another full episode of the Narrator Podcast, I'll be spotlighting a male. So that's how I try to, I just try to keep a balance, But anyway, without any further ado, join me into giving our sister, Lene Bowes, a warm Narrative Podcast round of applause for, all her projects that she's currently involved in and impacting our community in a positive way. Moving right along, the next section here on the Narrative Podcast is called the Health and Wellness section. And this section is self-explanatory. I'm speaking about health and wellness. I'm specifically giving health and wellness tips. And the reason why I'm giving health and wellness tips, my target listening audience is original people. Out of everybody else, in the world, our people, original people, we need healing the most. And the reason why we need healing the most is because our people are under the most attack. Our people are being attacked physically, mentally, and spiritually. And, that's what the health and wellness section is about on the Narrator podcast. I'm giving health and wellness tips to help our people protect ourselves in all the areas that we're being attacked. They're putting things, chemicals in the air. They're putting things in the water. They're putting things in our food. They're putting things in our daily, our day-to-day lives, things we use on a daily basis, such as cleaning products for our homes, laundry soap, dish soap, personal hygiene products, body wash, bar soap, harming us physically. And then they're corrupting our minds mentally on the internet with local news, with national news, newspapers, podcasts. Like, we're just under constant attack mentally or psychologically on an avid day. Every single day is some form of negativity that our psyches are exposed to. And it's not, it's not coincidental. This is intentionally done to harm us. They're putting all these harmful chemicals in things we use every day that inadvertently affects our unique genetic makeup, specifically designed to affect our unique genetic makeup. So that's physically, mentally, and then spiritually. Like, if you're watching the Diddy trial, all the things that this guy is accused of doing has spiritual ramifications of it. That's not natural, the things he was involved in. So that's essentially what I do on the health and wellness section. I give health and wellness tips to the listening audience, which is my target demographic, original people, to help us, achieve a happy, healthy, prosperous life. We're also being financially attacked as well, but I don't give financial advice because I believe health is wealth. You can have $1 billion, but then if you're not taking care of yourself, it ain't going to amount to anything. But anyway, on with this week's health and wellness tip here on the Narrator podcast. Examples of the types of tips I give. So the physical tip usually is about, the properties, the healing properties of a fruit, vegetable, herb, elixir, extract, tonic oil, or root that you can orally ingest or apply topically to promote healing in the body or nourish your body physically, or some type of physical exercise you can perform to keep yourself in peak physical condition. On the mental side of it, I usually give a mental technique that you can incorporate to sustain or rather to keep yourself in good mental health. And then, of course, I also give tips to guard your spirit so you can stay in good spiritual harmony. But this week is a physical day, so I'm going to be discussing the benefits of incorporating bitter melon into your diet. Now, the bitter melon, also known as a bitter gourd, is a tropical vine that belongs to the gourd family. It's closely related to the zucchini, squash, pumpkin, and cucumber. It's cultivated all over the world and is a staple in Chinese cuisine. So, so they're fairly common. They're all different types of varieties. The most common variety is the green kind. It looks kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It kind of looks something like an English cucumber, but more wrinkly. It's kind of like a cross between a cucumber and like a bean pod. That's kind of what like, have you ever ate peas out of the pod? Like actual, when they're growing off the vine, it kind of is like a cross between, a cucumber and a pea. Like, that's how they look. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. But the taste of them, now it's kind of like more like a cucumber mixed with a lemon. They're like super, it's implied in the name. It is bitter. They don't call it bitter melon for no reason. It is extremely bitter to eat. So you got to make it it's more beneficial to eat it raw, but it's like, man, if you think a lemon is sour, bitter melon, super duper tart. So it helps regulate blood sugar. It has antioxidative properties, and antioxidants basically are fat burners, so they can help you lose weight. It's anti-inflammatory, so it helps with inflammation anywhere in the body. It relieves joint pain, swelling. That's what anti-inflammatories do. And if you've ever paid attention to the teachings of Dr. Sebi, inflammation is the root cause of dis-ease. Like if there's inflammation anywhere in the body, a chronic illness is like on its way. Guaranteed. You're about to come down with something really terminal. If you have inflammation anywhere in your body. So if you have like inflammation in the knee, you probably got like, what's called water on your knee, or gout, or arthritis. I guess arthritis is a form of gout, or gout is a form of arthritis. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. So if inflammation anywhere in your body, it's signaling something's wrong with the body. If you have inflammation anywhere, if you have inflammation in your throat, chronic breathing problems is coming. You're going to have asthma, sinuses, or something like that. But so you always want to incorporate any food source that has anti-inflammatory properties. It also helps lower your cholesterol. And then, of course, it's mineral dense and nutrient dense. So it supplies everything your body needs, all the minerals and nutrients your body needs to function at optimal peak efficiency. So you'll be able to move and breathe and feel all around better. So essentially the bitter melon is a superfood. You want to try to incorporate that into your diet on a regular basis whenever possible. Now, they say it's like, grown all over the world, so it's fairly common, but, I haven't seen too many bitter melons growing. So your best bet, if you can't find them outside, would be an Asian mart. That'd be your best bet to, get a bitter melon. So that's this week's health and wellness tip here on the Narrator podcast. Incorporate bitter melon into your diet and start feeling better today. All right, so on to my next section here on the Narrator podcast. This section is called my current events section. I'm speaking about, current events, whether they're, on the internet, worldwide, nationally, or just something out of our community. And I cover it from the perspective, that impacts us. So and the reason why I do commentary is basically to control the narrative, because the media go out of its way to have us looking and sounding crazy and ridiculous. So whatever's going on in the world, I'm just putting it into perspective from our perspective, if that makes sense. So this is my current event section. I call it my current event sections my speaking points. I usually have up to 2 to 3 topics that I want to touch on, but tonight I just really want to touch on one. So if you've been listening to my weekday episodes of the Narrator podcast, I did mention at some point I was going to address it, and I'm addressing it super late because, I kind of had to digest it and chew it a little bit before delivering my commentary on it. I've heard a lot of different perspectives, and I feel like everybody that spoke on it argued a pretty good point about it, on the opposing side of it or on the accepting side of it. I started to dismiss it entirely because initially I felt like it teetered, on the realm of gossip. And gossip is something I try to stay away from on my platform. I don't engage it. I don't promote it. I don't stamp it. I don't endorse it. I really try to discourage against gossip, because gossip is what's destroying our community. But the more I thought about it, it's not really gossip, it's dialogue, and it's a discussion that we need to have, because we as a people, we're caught up in an invisible war. It's the righteous versus the wicked. We're caught up in that war. So when I say it, you might start laughing, but, once I unpack my point and drive my point home, then you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So, speaking point of the day is Kendrick Lamar replacing Lil Wayne for the Super Bowl halftime show. So, first of all, just putting it out, I don't watch the Super Bowl and haven't been watching the Super Bowl really since, the Colin Kaepernick thing. But the Super Bowl, in essence, all sports, in essence, when you really want to strip it down to the bare bones, the nitty gritty, it's just a distraction. Because you see the World Series, the Super Bowl, I think it's the World Series in baseball, the playoffs in basketball, Super Bowl in football, these big sporting events. Every time one of these big sporting events, something with government, in our U.S. government, something we need to be paying attention to, happens. I think last year, when we were watching the Super Bowl, I think the Ukraine, the little situation in the UK happened, while everybody was ranting and raving about the, goings on of the Super Bowl. I saw something online from this Caucasian gentleman. He did an upload, and his perspective about sporting events was that it is reminiscent of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire, that is the I forget the phrase he used. I think it said the Roman. I believe he said the Roman circus. Yeah, that's what he said. He said it was the Roman circus, sporting events. Because back in, the Roman times, they would have these gladiatorial type games to distract the people from affairs of state. And then he also went on to elaborate that's why they play, or why they pay people, professional people in sports, such high salaries. Because they basically are the wingmen for, all things foul in our government. They run interference. They get the people to focus on the sporting events and not what's going on in the affairs of state. But, I ain't trying to crap in nobody's cornflakes. If you love sports, support your team. Go to the sport events. Go to the sports parties. Wear your jerseys. Wear your hoodies. Your favorite team hoodies. Like, do you. But I'm just spitting facts. So yeah, like I said initially, I wasn't going to even talk about it because initially I felt like it kind of takes away from what I'm trying to do here, which is basically to provide positive frames of reference about our people and our culture, bring awareness to our people, and also to, unify our people. But this subject has divided our people, and, as they say, it's a teachable moment. So I've heard a lot of interesting perspectives on it. So I'm going to give you my hot take on the Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne deal. So the star player surrounding all this is one Mr. Jay-Z, Sean Carter. So he's like the big muckety muck of the Super Bowl. He's on the committee or whatever. whatever. I don't know his position. Like I said, I ain't been keeping up with the Super Bowl. But I do know a thing or three about the reputation of Jay-Z. And the reputation of Jay-Z is that he's self-absorbed, arrogant, and really doesn't care about our people. All he cares about is money. And he will do anything he needs to do to acquire the level of wealth that he wants to acquire. This is what the people are saying about Jay-Z. This is what a few of his peers in hip-hop say about Jay-Z. So that's the overall perception, keyword, perception, air quotes. I'm saying air quotes because I'm a verbal platform. But that's, I'm going somewhere with it. This the general perception of Jay-Z as a person, as an individual. He's a greedy, self-absorbed, callous, anal retentive, egomaniacal bastard. This is what the people are saying, not me. I'm just quoting back what the general consensus of Jay-Z is to the average people. I don't know the man. All I know him from is entertainment. I ain't never went to a live Jay-Z show. I don't know. Never seen him a day in my life. I'm just saying what the people are saying. So it really kind of set the internet ablaze. People are super duper big mad at Jay-Z for making the executive, keyword executive, air quotes, decision to place Kendrick Lamar over Lil Wayne. Now here's my hot take on it. As a people, we love, especially in the hip-hop culture, we love throwing around the word or term or phrase hater. We love calling somebody a hater simply because they don't agree with your perspective or agree with your opinion or the way you view something. They're automatically a hater. Oftentimes, people call somebody a hater and they ain't doing nothing but telling the truth. They said something you don't like, and now all of a sudden they a hater because they don't agree with you. They ain't co-signing your bull crap. They told you how they generally, authentically feel, but because it doesn't align up with what you feel is right, keyword, air quotes, feel, you gonna call them a hater. So said all that to say, a lot of our thinking as a people, our thought process is emotionally derived. This is why we're at where we're at politically. Because when we go to them polls, we typically vote for the person that makes us feel secure. Not what their policies represent. Not, if they have any tangibles for our people. This is like, we went and swallowed their snake oil because it felt good. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. So, on the whole, people feel a certain way about Jay-Z. Emotionally, they feel resentment towards Jay-Z for whatever reason. You know, another word we like throwing around is like, oh, I don't like the vibe. I don't like XYZ, his vibe or their vibe. They got low vibes or whatever. Vibes, whatever. Cool. Now, when you come into Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne, both talented young brothers in the art of rapping, both doing dynamic things with the art form and taking it to a plateau that it's never been taken before. Both respectfully, equally, in their own right. If we're talking skill level, if we're talking about the art form from purely a sonic level, who sounds better, who's more skilled between the two, hands down, it's Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne got it. I said it. Lil Wayne is the best rapper alive. Fight me. I don't care. He's the best rapper alive. Period. He has surpassed everybody on skill level. Even the OG GOATs, whoever you call yourself in your top 5, he surpassed them years ago. But visually, aesthetically, artistically, who's the better? One of the two. If we're talking sustenance, if we're talking about articism, if we're talking content, it's Kendrick Lamar, hands down. Not only is Kendrick Lamar a better artist, Kendrick Lamar is a revolutionary. Kendrick Lamar is destined to be way more than a rapper, and all his hip-hop peers know that. They see his calling all over him. His calling is like, we're looking at this young man in awe. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody always talks about the next Pac. Who's going to be the next Pac? Who's going to be the next Pac? It's Kendrick. Kendrick is the next Pac. Kendrick is the reincarnation of Tupac. Kendrick is the reincarnation of Prodigy from Mobb Deep. He's the reincarnation of Big L. He's the reincarnation of all our music legends. You see it all over him. You know, without getting too far out there, like Kendrick Lamar is the hip-hop savior. And why he's so powerful as a hip-hop savior is because his motives are pure. He's one of the last rappers that's not seduced by the wicked ways of the world. He came in the industry with pure motives. He came in at 14 years old, rhyming under K. Dot, and all he wanted to do was to be a good rapper. Not the greatest, he just wanted to be good. He wanted his music heard. He didn't even want to be the best. He just wanted to be good. And then after he got in the industry, he had an awakening. We all saw his awakening when he woke up. When that light flicked on, he said, oh, I'm supposed to do more than that. When he made that transition from K. Dot to just using his government name, being true to himself, not being consumed by the wild ways of the world, just expressing himself truly, being true to himself. They don't make rappers like that no more. They get in and they gotta be fly. It's the cars, it's the jewelry, it's the, the hotels and the G5 planes. No principles, no morals. They can be bought and sold for money. Kendrick Lamar is the personification of righteousness in hip-hop. Now, not saying he's perfect. Nobody's perfect. He knows he got his flaws. He knows he's aware of his own flaws. He knows he's not perfect. And nobody's perfect. But far as being a symbol, far as being a beacon, it's him. It's him. Hands down. Now, where does Jay-Z fit in all this? Where does Jay-Z fit in all this? Because so many people are just sure, just absolutely sure that Jay-Z picked Kendrick Lamar over Lil Wayne over spite and malice because he was hating, because he didn't want Lil Wayne to shine. Now, why is it so important to Lil Wayne to get on that stage? It's because it's going down in New Orleans. And Lil Wayne been representing New Orleans since day one. He's a New Orleans alumni. And like I said, Lil Wayne is the greatest rapper of all time. But hold on. Being great ain't the only factor that you have to factor in when selecting talent for that day. The deciding factor is the impact. Who has the greatest impact? When Lil Wayne does a show, he does a show. But when Kendrick Lamar does a show, he does a show. Do you see the difference? Keyword C. Do you see the difference? That's what Jay-Z was looking at. It's all about visual aesthetics. And so, moreover, this is where people, I believe, kind of get our brother kind of confused about him not caring about nothing other than himself. He got all kinds of receipts. Literally everything, anytime somebody in our community gets unalived by the police, he's among one of the first to get called to pay the bills for the family for the entire year. Cover the funeral expense and make sure the family's good for the whole year. It's Jay. Or if not Jay, it's Beyonce. If it's not Jay and Beyonce, it's Oprah or Tyler or Shaq. But he does give back. Love him, hate him, you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that. No matter how you personally feel towards him, you have to acknowledge that Jay-Z does good in our community. Whether you feel like he's an a-hole in real life, that's your emotional feelings. But on paper, he got receipts of nonprofit organizations he's paid into, you know, and while everybody's like talking about Diddy, like Diddy got the receipts too, he done help people too. So whenever you get out of your feelings and look at like actual factual black and white, the guy helps out regardless of how you personally feel about him. Then another thing about him is the brother's highly intelligent on the business side of it. And his he got a real just practical, straightforward mode of communication. He's from the pocket of time is money. He don't do too many interviews because he's conducting business. So in the very few interviews you see Jay-Z speaking, he's speaking the language of money, which translates into time. Another thing about Jay-Z, he's never been broke. He had millions of, he's one of the few rappers that were wealthy before they became rappers. He had millions of dollars before he got his deal. And there are a ton of rappers that don't like him, have beefed with him, but has conceded that he was financially independent before he got signed to a major label. So said all that to say, what the hell is he jealous of Lil Wayne for? If it was a jealousy thing, he had $1 million before Lil Wayne was a twinkle in his daddy's eyes. This guy's 60 years old. He been rhyming since the 80s, but he been rich since the 70s, basically. Like he had thousands of dollars in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. He's been balling for a long time. Now I know some people can be envious, like, you know, there's some really ornery people out there. It's not that they, you know, jealous of what you got, they just don't want you to have what you have, and will go out their way to sabotage you just because they don't want to see you with it. There are people like that, but I don't believe that Jay-Z's so petty and egomaniacal he would just intentionally sabotage Lil Wayne's success just because he don't want to see the love that New Orleans would have for Lil Wayne if he got on that stage. I think a lot of people aren't giving him enough credit for having the foresight to think strategically 10 steps ahead. Because he's the perception I have of Jay-Z is like, he's the kill all my ducks with one stone. So by having Kendrick headline, he's killing all his ducks with one stone. And one of the ducks that he's killing is the movement. The people that are accusing him that he's not with the movement. Oh, Jay ain't with the movement. He said, we got to get past the kneeling. And when he said it, most people, what they got out of that was somebody speaking from a place of selfishness. We got to get past the kneeling. You know, that's what they got out of that. What he was saying is like, okay, when we're done kneeling, what are we going to do? Because he took the knee because he couldn't In his words, he said, I can't salute a racist flag. So before he started kneeling, he was just sitting. He refused to stand for the American anthem. And then that man told him, boy, you gonna stand up during the American anthem, or you're not gonna play no more. So then he took the knee, and the knee was a little less offensive. And then they kicked him out of there. Then they made a mockery of him taking the knee, because then they got, the players and the owners, they taking the knee, and it wasn't never about the knee. It was about, him standing on principle and, not choosing to salute the American flag when the American flag hasn't done anything for people that look like him. That's what it was about. And so in that instance, that's what Jay-Z was saying, was like, we have to be actionable. Because you can talk a good game. You can get up on a soapbox and sound so articulate and driven and charismatic. But if you don't have a plan of action, if you don't got a plan of action, all that talk is just talk. And so that's what he meant by, we got to get past the kneeling. That's what he meant. But we took it as him being just a self-absorbed a-hole. So said all that to say, another perspective that people ain't looking at, Jay-Z been around for a long time, and he's seen a lot of things in his time. And he done been on both sides of the coin. He's been an artist, and he been like running the industry at one point in time when he was the president over at Def Jam. And he does daily meetings with the devil, with the devils. So we, in the conscious community, we sitting up there pontificating, we debating and, giving all these hypotheticals. He's really in the soil with them. He knows how they think. He sees how they think. And sometimes the best way to stay ahead of the enemy is to walk right alongside of them. You want to walk right alongside of them so they can't get behind you and do something to you. But said all that to say, a perspective that people is not looking at is that he sees the same thing in Kendrick Lamar that everybody else sees. And what everybody else sees when they look at Kendrick Lamar, that he's destined to be something more than just a rapper. His destiny is crowning right now. He's becoming aware of his destiny little by little. But by Jay-Z knowing what he knows about the industry and knowing how much money that will generate, how much revenue will be generated for Kendrick's performance, he knows Kendrick's going to need that money. Because Kendrick's like one of the last of the noble rappers. And that's what's needed in the world. Because we're in a war. You can't fight the war with words. You got to buy bullets. You see? He wants Kendrick to get this big bag so he can keep his brand independent, so it doesn't get stagnated and he don't have to plug into the machine, and he can keep on being the entity that is him. And no disrespect to Lil Wayne, but he's not You know what I mean? He's not as impactful as Kendrick Lamar, not by a long shot. So what we need in the Super Bowl, we need symbolism. As a people, our people, like, we need something like that. That's why a lot of us go to church. That's why a lot of us go to the mosque. That's why a lot of us, like, are religious or whatever. We need something to believe in because, you know, the oppressors done showed us we're not where it's at. And the closest thing we're going to get to God is Kendrick Lamar on that stage. Because he's the personification of what a God is. Self-motivated, unafraid, unfearful. You know, they say standing on business. Kendrick Lamar standing on business. For real. He don't backpedal and, you know, try to clean it up. If whatever he said, that's what he said. And ain't nobody challenged nothing he said all since he been in the industry. Because he ain't said nothing foul. And so as an artist, he knows, Kendrick Lamar, he knows symbolism is a big part of why he's so popular. So he incorporates a whole lot of our plight into his live shows, into his music videos. That little dance that he was doing when they're not like us, they're not like us, that got, you know, civil rights roots to it. I forget the exact thing what it was called, but that symbolized, you know, them coming through the back door. Our people got to come through the side door. That's what that little dance was symbolizing. He does symbolism like that. Like every live appearance that Kendrick Lamar does is equivalent to Danny Glover's in America. What I forget the title of it. This Is America. That's all Kendrick Lamar's visual representation. And so that's the strategic brilliance of Jay-Z. How do I say it without saying it? Put somebody up there that's not afraid to say it. You see? And if he receives any backlash, that only catapults Kendrick Lamar's brand. Because he got an untainted, unsullied brand. He lives only for the truth. So if people get mad about him telling the truth, that makes him more popular. Whereas like if Lil Wayne in his 40s now start telling the truth, you know, he's going to get blackballed, blacklisted, you know, canceled, all that. But Kendrick Lamar came out telling the truth. So that's, you know, the credit people aren't giving Jay-Z for having the foresight to say, I think the better choice would be Kendrick. Like when Snoop said, I'm giving you the torch, run with it. He ran with it. Big Snoop Dogg, he looked at him, he knew, he saw Kendrick's destiny over him in that moment. And he been around and seen a lot too. So everybody in hip hop, and I think everybody is in agreement that Kendrick is the one. He's the one. And not taking no, you know, nothing away from Lil Wayne, but he's just not as impactful as Kendrick. Like, so when we look at that stage at that halftime with all that demonic filth that we're going to be looking at that stage, We got a beacon of light. And he's going to, put out all our issues in that visual representation. He's going to be saying everything we're thinking. He's going to communicate that sentiment visually with the visual aesthetics of it, to complement his rhymes, and set all foul things right in that moment. Whereas if Lil Wayne was up there, he's going to do his thing. We're going to talk about it for a couple weeks. And then, okay, next Super Bowl, Kendrick Lamar go up there. We're going to be talking about that for years. Years. And then the even more crazy thing, Kendrick Lamar, he's so humble. How much you want to bet he's going to arrange a segment in his live show where he's going to bring Lil Wayne up on stage anyway? Probably all the Cash Money artists in attendance, he's going to bring them up on stage with him. He's probably going to bring any No Limit artists in attendance on stage with him. Because he believes, like Kendrick Lamar, is that the greater good type of dude. Because that would be a part of his symbolism, a part of, his truth, unifying hip hop. Because he's bringing Bloods and Crips together. So you don't think he's going to bring people that have regional differences together? You don't think he's going to bring No Limit and Cash Money together if he can? So now, not saying, I got a little long-winded, so I don't want you to take away from what I'm saying to believe that I believe, rappers are the savior or entertainers are the savior. Do it for yourself. If you feel it in your heart, of course, do it for, what I mean? Don't be sitting up there waiting for an entertainer to do something for you that you could be doing for yourself. If you feel that there's an issue in your community or something that you feel is missing, of course get up and do it yourself. But I'm just talking about in general, hip hop is the language of our people, and it's always been from the beginning. And Kendrick Lamar is the personification of hip hop, the true roots of it, the true artistry of it. He's that. He can pull that off. He's the visual representation of it. What that looks like. What that deep passion looks like. So not saying Lil Wayne isn't a passionate artist, but the things he talks about is more like stereotypical stuff for our people. We don't want to see stereotype on stage no more. We're tired of seeing stereotypes up on stage. We don't want to see him up there with a double styrofoam cup and 80, 90 twerkers behind him. We're tired of seeing that. So that's why I believe Jay-Z picked Kendrick over Lil Wayne. So like on the business side of it, because he looks better up there business-wise, because ain't going to be no wardrobe malfunctions, ain't going to be no, ignorant, nigga-ish on stage with Kendrick. It's going to be tasteful. It's going to be artistic. It's going to be monumental. Whereas at Lil Wayne, it'll be all kind of liabilities. It'll be some gangbang stuff. It'll be, no telling. That's on the business side of it. Then on the art side of it, that's what y'all not giving Jay-Z the credit for seeing the artistic integrity behind it. And then the political integrity behind Kendrick, what he stands for. That Jay-Z saw that, saw his destiny and saw, what he stands for. Y'all not giving him credit for seeing that in him. But that's just my spiel on it. Y'all can think what y'all want to think. That's just what I think. I don't think I know everything, but that's how I perceive the whole situation. So, that was my speaking point for this evening. And now to close out my final section here on the Narrator Podcast Weekend Edition. This section is called Final Word of the Day. Or Word of the Day, pardon me. I think I switched it up. I used to call it Final Word of the Day. Now I call it Wise Word of the Day. So today's Wise Word of the Day is rise. When you bake a cake, what is the objective? You put your leavening agents in there. What do you want to see when you're baking the cake? Remember when your mom or grandma or, any older person in your life, when they would bake a cake? I'm not talking about them cakes that already come in the box. I'm talking about the real deal, like Big Mama. Using the actual ingredients, the leavening agents, the fat, the eggs, the milk, the oil, from scratch. And then they mix it up and they put it in that oven. And then you can't, don't go in that kitchen, don't go by that kitchen. Why? Because you don't want the cake to fall. You want to do what? You want it to rise. So there's going to be a lot of, situations in life where you're going to fall. But that's where you're unlike a cake, because when the cake falls, it's done. It's a wrap. It just is what it is. It's going to be ugly. It's still edible, but it's not going to be aesthetically pleasing. Now, when we fall, we do what? We get back up. I think Donnie Kirkland had a gospel song. When we fall, we get up. When you get up, you rise. You rise for every occasion in life. You rise for the challenge. You rise to meet your destiny. You rise for the new day. Wise word of the day this week here on the Narrator Podcast Weekend Edition, rise. Rise to meet your fate today. I hope you guys will rise and shine on my next full episode of the Narrator Podcast premiering next weekend, and also for my weekday episodes of the Narrator Podcast, wherever you get your podcast source from. Join me again this weekend for a full episode of the Narrator Podcast, and throughout the weekday. I broadcast at least 2 to 3 times during the weekday for weekday episodes of the Narrator podcast. So whichever time set is more convenient for you, whether it be the weekend or the weekday, rise to join me, Halsey Allen, on the Narrator podcast. Well, that's it, and that's all, y'all. I'm out of here like last year, extending love, light, and healing energy to everything surrounding your conditions, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. I'm projecting nothing but abundance over you. Together, we will change the narrative. I'm Halsey Allen, and I'm changing the narrative one episode at a time. I'm asking you to help me change the narrative by becoming a narrator. And while I'm changing the narrative one episode at a time on my end, as a narrator, you can help me change the narrative one social media post at a time on your end. Until next time, Halsey Allen in the Narrator podcast, signing off, and it's like that.
You are now listening to the Narrative Podcast with Halsey Allen. The Narrative Podcast is changing the narrative one episode at a time.